Alright, we are back, but not with another painting tutorial. A little bit of a different video this week. I decided to embark on a challenge to paint a 40k army, all 2,000 points, in 12 hours. This challenge came about sort of out of spite, I will admit. There's another gaming group, I'm not going to say a rival gaming group, but another gaming group, about an hour from the one I'm in. And, you know, we have cross-pollination as much as any two groups that are relatively near each other do. And someone posted saying they painted their 2,000 point army in 24 hours. That was cool. And, you know, I said the paint job looks cool. But what about the basing? Because the basing wasn't done. They were just on regular black bases. And he responded by saying, well, our gaming group doesn't require basing to get the 10 points required for fully painted in 40k. And anyway, there's not enough time to do basing in 24 hours. So this offended me on a deep spiritual level. One, because I think basing is equally as important as the paint job. Not only because the rules say you need to have a textured base, but just because I think the models look good when their bases are done. And, you know, of course, everyone to each their own. I'm not actually upset at this person. I'm not actually offended by this person. But it was just funny to me. And so I thought, you know, out of some fun and spite, that I would try to paint a full army in 12 hours. Half the time he took, including basing. So I did. So I did a all or mostly all Primaris army. There are a couple Terminators thrown in here. And I put a poll up on our group's Facebook page, and I said you guys can vote for any chapter you want, and whatever chapter wins the vote, that's what I'll paint. So the poll ran for about 4 days, and when the poll was done, the Bringers of Judgement, whose picture I will throw up here, were the winner. So not a lot is known about them, other than the fact that they're a Dark Angel successor, and they are very zealous in their need to destroy heretics, and so they're known for, if anyone on a planet is guilty, the whole planet is guilty, and they go from there. So, you know, maybe not the nicest of fellows, but nonetheless, that was the paint scheme that won the vote, so that's what I'm painting. So I started off by priming all these guys just a flat white, Rust-Oleum flat white, and then I used Apothecary white across every model. So that's what I started with. That was the first thing you saw me doing. I put that on every single model. Then I went back and unit by unit, I started painting them. So the first thing I did, which I'm a couple steps in at this point in the time-lapse you can see here. First thing I did was use Hoplite Gold, one of the new 2.0 speed paints from Army Painter. This is a great color. And I put that on their helmets, their feet, and their arms, and the chest eagle. Then I went on to Black Templar, and I did that on their weapons. And then, as you can see in the video right now, I'm not sure exactly if this is the exact order I did it in, but more or less, as you can see right now, I used a silver paint marker to do all the silver parts on them. I will pop a picture of this paint marker up. It's a metallic craft work pen. I got it on like one of those Chinese discount websites, like I can't even remember the name of one of them right now, but you know what I'm talking about, the ones that you see on advertising all over the place, and they seem to come and go pretty quickly. I got it on one of those websites for like $1 or something. So I used that to edge highlight all the black and to do all the silver bits on them. Then there were just a couple steps after that. I used some Dark Oath Flesh on all the leather, some Ball Red on the eye lenses, and then a couple of them, not every model, but some models have Purity Seals, so I did Sigvald Burgundy for the wax of the Purity Seal, and Skeleton Horde for the parchment of the Purity Seal. Then I took another one of these paint markers, this time a gold and I did just a couple highlights like the rims of shoulder pads and stuff like that. If I was painting this chapter to 100% completion, which I was not doing in this video, I was trying for first, what is the word I'm trying to think of? The minimum viable product. So I wasn't doing any of the transfers or chapter symbols, but I would have used Black Templar to draw in the scales that are the chapter symbol of the Bringers of Judgement. But then, that was basically it for every one of these models. And as you can see right now, I've moved on to the regular intercessors. I did 10 assault intercessors first, and now I'm on to regular intercessors. And as you can see, the timer in the bottom left is relatively accurate. I think this timer in the video ends with about 2 minutes and 50 seconds left, spoiler alert, in the 12 hours. Realistically, I had about 2 minutes and 20 seconds left, so it is a bit off. And that's mostly because I was filming on my Pixel, and it has a auto time-lapse thing which will adjust the speed of the time-lapse based on what it thinks it needs to do. And so this is roughly 30-1, but it's not exact because the auto will adjust it, sometimes drop it a little bit lower or speed it up a little bit when it decides that it needs to. And I let it do that because it saves a little bit of storage space, and you know, I didn't want to set it at something and have it take up a bunch of space that it didn't need to, basically. So now, as you can see, I've moved on to the heavy intercessors. This is the third unit, and so I'm about 4 hours in, just under 4 hours in, and I'm working on the 21st through 30th model. So I'm going at a decent pace. There are 79 models in this army. So I'm going at a decent pace. There are some named characters, or sorry, not named characters, but characters at the end, and a dreadnought, and then of course all the basing. So I do need to speed up a little bit, but it's going pretty well. But pretty much on all these models, they're the same colors across the board. It's a pretty simple paint scheme, all things considered. Just putting the gold on, the hoplite gold, then the Black Templar, then doing the couple details, ball red, dark oath flesh, and then using the paint markers to do the highlights. So I'll just let this run for a bit, and when I have something else to say, I will come back and be sure to say it. So as you can see here, I have moved on now to the Inceptors of the list, and one of them broke off the base. The Inceptor bases, the flight stands, are just the worst. I never use them when at all possible. And so I've glued these onto little bits of cork, and one of them fell off the cork because it's not the most stable of platforms, but we fixed that and it was fine. And on these models, and Gravis models in general, are a little more complicated than the regular intercessors and assault intercessors. And so I really had to think about how am I going to keep the paint job simple, because I do have to do 79 miniatures in 12 hours, but still make them not just look kind of bland in 3 colors, which is the main thing on these guys, is 3 colors, is black, gold, and white, right? So I just tried to think about that. And so on these guys, which you'll see in a minute, I did some Frostheart contrast paint. There you go, right here. In the thrusters of these guys, so that there's just a little pop of color on them, and it just helps kind of differentiate them. And then there's a bunch of different like cables and stuff on their backs and on the back of their legs and stuff, and I just made sure to get those in black so they're not just left white. And there's a lot of times when you see speed painted armies, there's a lot of details that are just kind of left the color of the main color. So just in this case, they'd just be left white. And I really tried to avoid that. I tried to hit everything with either a gold or a black or a silver. And then when I was almost done with these guys, which you just saw there, I took that silver paint marker, and I painted the fins coming off the backpacks in silver. So there's just a little difference there. There's nothing pure silver on the other miniatures, but these guys had that pure silver on the fins. And then I'm over 5.5 hours in at this point, and my brain just kind of needed a break. So I just went and did another unit of assault intercessors. I'd already done these. I did them as my first unit, so it was pretty easy to just kind of go back and do everything I had already done and not have to think about a new paint scheme. So I'll let this run again, and when I come to a new unit, I'll come back and explain. And I should point out, as you can see here, I'm doing all of one color on each miniature, and then moving to the next miniature and doing that same color. And that really saves a lot of time. I'm sure most of you are familiar with batch painting. That's what this is. But in case you aren't, batch painting is just picking a color and doing that on every miniature, then picking the next color and doing that on every miniature. And I did that throughout the whole day. It really saves time for switching paints. And for me, it just feels like it goes faster in general. I don't know if it saves a ton of time, but again, 79 miniatures in 12 hours, especially at this point in the day. I am sort of halfway in terms of miniatures. I'm working on my 31st through 40th miniature right now, but I'm a little bit more than halfway through the time, and I know I still have to do the basing. So I'm starting, not panic, but I am starting to think about, hey, we need to, keep moving, need to keep the pace up, etc. And so now, as you can see, I've moved on to the Infernus Marines. And these guys are very similar to regular intercessors other than the gun. And I decided to make these guys pop a little bit. I used the gold paint marker on the tips of the flamers. You'll see that in the picture here. And that is just a slightly different color than the hoplite gold, and in my opinion really makes them pop. If I was going to go back and do some more work on these guys, the heat color change that you often see on flamers would be an awesome addition to these guys. I think it would really sell on those gold tipped flamers, but for a 12-hour speed paint, that was not in the cards. As you can see, I'm really coming down to it now. I've got about 4.5 hours left, and I still have about 20-25 miniatures to go, plus the basing. And 4 of those miniatures are characters, so they're all gonna have to be individualized. And then one of those is a dreadnought, which is big. So, if I wasn't panicking earlier, maybe I'm starting to panic now, thinking I'm not gonna be able to get it done. And I should say, panic is probably the wrong word. This is a personal hobby goal, right? Nothing is riding on this. No one actually cares really other than me that I get it done. So, if it ended up taking me 13 hours, would it have been the end of the world? No, but I like to generally try and stick to my hobby goals when I set them for myself, if possible. And so just the kind of internal motivation is what's causing this quote-unquote panic, I should say. There's no big outside forces acting on this that are causing actual panic. Always something to keep in mind. If you've set a goal for yourself, no problem with feeling pressure to get it done. But, if you don't get it done and there's no other ramifications for not getting it done, not the biggest deal in the world. So now I moved on to the the infiltrators of this army. And they were a nice break, to be honest. I probably should have done them a little bit earlier in the process, just because they're very different. They've got all that. They've got a bunch of antennas and a bunch of scopes and all this weird stuff on their guns, and so they're just very different. They don't have the leg armor that all the other guys have, and so they're just kind of a different paint job in general. And I really enjoyed these guys. But like I said, I should have probably done them in the middle of more of the intercessor type. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, this is my second to last actual unit of the army. The next unit will be the Terminators, which again are a different animal. These infiltrators also allowed me to put a couple different pop colors in there. One of the infiltrators has a wristband on that has a couple screens on it. I was able to do a blue and a green in there to just give them a little pop of color, so that was always nice. Always nice when you have a paint scheme that you're replicating across many miniatures to have a couple chances to do some different colors. And I guess I was wrong. Forgot about these guys. I had 3 eradicators to do. So I knocked these out pretty quick, and then I think I go on to the Terminators with about 3 hours, a little under 3 hours left on my time. So now here we are on to the Terminators. About 2 hours, 45 minutes left to go. And this is the last unit. And then after this, I have 4 characters and a dreadnought to do. So we're really moving at this point. The hurry up, you got to get this done, is really kicked in. And I think I knocked these Terminators out pretty quickly. If you noticed on the time, it was about 9 hours 15 when these started. I think I finished these guys just after 10 hours on the timer. So I really moved through these Terminators, and that was nice. I was really happy how the assault cannon turned out, which I will put the assault cannon guy. You've probably already seen him now, but I'll put him as the example picture for these guys. And I used that gold paint marker again on the barrels of the assault cannon. I was really happy with how that came out. I also used it on the shoulder pads. I completely covered the shoulder pads with that gold, and that made the Terminator stand out, which I think is important because they are, at least for me it's important, because they are this classic unit, and they're different than Primaris. I know the current lore is that Primaris and Firstborn can go in this Terminator armor, but for me, they are a little different. They're not Primaris, so I wanted them to stand out. And they're not the centerpiece, really, of the army. In terms of playing, the centerpiece is probably the heavy intercessors. I've got a Gravis Captain and a Apothecary Biologist in there, so that's kind of the core of the army. But in terms of my favorite unit in the army, it's the Terminators, just from the nostalgia purposes. So here, like I said, just after 10 hours on the clock, I start in on the Librarian, and I did his armor kind of a different way than I maybe normally would. I used Tyrian or Tyran blue. It's a shade paint, actually. What is it actually called? Tyran blue. It's a shade paint, not a contrast paint, but I did 3 layers of it, and it really gave me a nice blue. And then I was able to just block in the other details. The Tyran blue really settled into all the cracks and crevices on his armor and made it look really good. And then I did the 2 captains together. I was originally going to do them separately because they're different models completely. They're not in a unit. But time was really going here. And so because they both had a cape that was a different color, I used ball red on those capes. And they both have a sword. They're both captains, so they have iron halos. They have enough similarities that I said, okay, I'll batch paint these essentially. Small batch, there's only 2 of them. But I did each color on both models at the same time. So then the last infantry model was the Apothecary Biologist. And I'll be honest, looking at the clock now with just over an hour left, I still am not sure how I got this done. there's still, I have to finish this guy, which he was fun. He had a couple pop colors on him. I got to do a blue on his carrying case, and I think a green on his wristband, and a couple other things. But I had to move through that guy, and then I still had this dreadnought. I should not have left the dreadnought until the end. He's obviously the biggest model. He's not overly complicated, but nonetheless, I should not have left him to the end. Should have done him far closer to the beginning. In order to save a little bit of time, and because contrast and speed paint doesn't like to go on flat surfaces, I used the paint marker for his shoulder pads, and that really helped speed things along. So then, with about 50 minutes left on the clock, I started in on the basing. So for this, I used one of the Geek Gaming Scenics Battle Ready basing materials. I honestly don't know which one it was. I think Arid Plains, but I took them out of their labeled bags like a goose and didn't note which one was which, so I'm honestly not sure. But I just used some PVA glue and then dunked them all in this mixture, and then let them sit. And so I just kind of powered through this as fast as I could. It's a pretty quick process once you get it down, and especially like on the assault intercessors, they only have 1 foot on the ground, so that was nice. But yeah, then I got some black from, I think this is the Vallejo black, from the D&D Prismatic paint line. Squeezed that out, and Black Pudding, I think it's called. And I just did the base rims, and I just tried to do the base rims as fast as I possibly could. And I was sweating doing these base rims. I did not think I was gonna make it. Was doing my best, but as you can see, I did finish, and I was able to complete with, I know the timer says I had almost 3 minutes left, but like I said, it was really more about 2 minutes 20 seconds left, which was fine with me. Having any time left over was great. I thought I was going to go over, so that was awesome. Very happy to complete the challenge, and I think I'm going to do another one, to be honest, coming up pretty soon. I don't know if I'll make a video about that one because it'll kind of be the same sort of process as this one, but I am going to try to do another one. I had a lot of fun doing it. 12 hours. I should say, this was not me sitting at my desk for 12 hours straight. That would be incredibly tiring, but also downright dangerous. So I paused the timer when I stood up and took a break. I didn't go to sleep, so these 12 hours were in one day. I started at noon on a Saturday, and I finished at about 3:30 or 4 in the morning the following day. So I was up for about 16 hours or so. I wasn't up. I was up before that, but the painting process was contained in about 16 hours. At one point, I think with about 3 hours left, I just needed a break, and so I went and watched some college football for about an hour and a half. Regular stretch breaks, getting up, that kind of thing. Very important. You don't want to be sitting for that long at a time. So yeah, I should definitely mention that. I would not do this challenge without leaving my desk. 12 hours in a row would be crazy. Nonetheless, I'm very happy with the challenge, doing it without sleeping in between, in one day essentially. That was the goal, and I achieved it. So as you've been seeing throughout this process, I put some pictures up of these guys, and I will put a group shot up of the models as well, which you should be seeing right about now. But yeah, these guys I've gotten to play with them once. I've won that game, so they are undefeated. Maybe I'll shelve them now, and they can be undefeated for the rest of their lives. I'm not sure about that, but we'll see. But in any event, I know this is maybe not the most interesting video to watch, but I had a really good time doing this, and so I thought you guys might want to see that process in action. I don't blame you if you didn't watch the whole thing. It's just kind of watching a time lapse for going on 25 minutes now. Not the most interesting, but if you watched 30 seconds or all 26 minutes, I appreciate it very much. If you liked the video, feel free to hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos, and I will see you on the next one.